Awesome. Thank you.
I'll keep an eye on the waiting room.
Awesome. Yeah, my computer is still converting the former conversion, so the former recording, so it's complex.
Yeah, and again, I apologize about the closed captioning. It's a gap that we didn't recognize, and I'm glad you guys brought it to our attention. So I don't know why it's the settings seem to be set up, so I'm not sure exactly why it's not working yet.
We're embarking, Brendan.
Well, we can wait for them, or I'll just tell you briefly. I apologize that we took a little longer than expected.
It's fine. Absolutely.
I do think some more time. We are very aware of some difficult timelines. We are very aware of this thing taking longer than everybody wants it to. We're aware of the fee issue and the status quo issue. So, but let us take this proposal back. We will expedite a response. We will keep you in the loop about where things stand. And move along. Again, we're not ignoring the fact that there's a fee payment issue. We don't want to go down some path of having to deal with the grievance or you having to deal with the grievance. So we're aware of that, but we appreciate your proposal. So let us take that back and get back to you as quickly as we can.
Sure, we appreciate that. Do you think Brooke has Brooke already arrived? Do we have Dr. Duncan?
I'm here.
Awesome, perfect. Yeah, we appreciate that. We have still time, and there are some GAs that wanted to speak. So what I can do is actually we have a list of speakers, but actually whoever wants to can raise your hand, and we can call you as depending on the amount of time we have left. We have Eduardo Rijos. Eduardo, are you there? Do you know if he managed to connect? In the meantime, Constantina.
Just remember after Constantina, there's a question in the chat that we need to make sure is asked.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Excuse my voice, I'm a little bit sick. And one of those not going to the doctor because they cannot afford it. I have a few questions, actually just 3 for Mr. Fuller and the other people here. My first question is, do you know how many apartments does UF allocate to graduate students? What's the total capacity of apartment UF has for graduate students?
I don't think any of us know, but I'm happy to write the question down. So you're asking how many?
Have the answer. I have the answer.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it was more rhetoric. So for Diamond Village, Corey Village, and Tanglewood, you have 632 apartments. So Maguire is getting demolished. We're not going to include that. And in 2020, you had a total of 13,382 graduate students, but you could only lodge 632, which pushes naturally the vast majority of students to off-campus housing, or gives them the option to go live at the Continuum, which brings me to my next question. The Continuum has apartments that go from 500 square feet to 600 square feet at the price of $1,245 to $1,272 a month. So let's just say $1,300, which brings it down to 2.5 per square foot as a price. And then outside, the average rent in Gainesville currently is $1,444 for a 1,000 square feet apartment, which brings UF's pricing for the Continuum almost twice as much as one will be expected to pay outside. I'm not going to make a comment on that, but it does feel like you're really trying to kind of milk the cash cow. And then I wanted to ask you lastly, if you're aware with this index that is called the housing wage index. that has been used by the National Low Income Housing Coalition. And that index basically is the hourly pay a full-time worker must have in order to afford a modest apartment for it to be cost burden-free. So that index in 2020 for Alachua County was $17.19. So $17.19 will be the minimum one full-time worker will have to make in order to be able to live with dignity in Alachua County. And that number, sir, came from UF Center for Housing estimated in 2020, so prior to the 2021 raises of the rental market in Gainesville, prior to the inflation, estimated that a full-time worker needs to make $17.19 to be able to live without having it to be cost burden. So I wanted to just get your opinion on that and whether you think it's fair to pay barely above that your workers that are not full-time and international students like myself who cannot go outside, for instance, and do Uber or supplement that income with any other job or part-time job because our visa doesn't allow to. So I want to get your opinion and tell me whether you think it's reasonable to give us a raise of $1,300 per year when the same report and the same coalition says that one must make $35,000 a year in Alachua County to be able to afford one-bedroom apartment without having it to be cost burden, or $32,000 if you want to account for a studio. So just, I want your thoughts on that.
I'm happy to take your concerns back to our bargaining team and the university, but I don't think I'm not going to allow any members of our bargaining team to sort of provide off-the-cuff opinions on information that were provided just now without having the opportunity to think about them or look at them. So I'm happy to listen to you all. We're happy to take back all your information. This session is being recorded, but I don't think we're in a position to respond sort of on an item by item basis without at least sort of considering and looking at the information you're providing.
Okay.
What else is there to consider? Sir, what else are you going to consider in addition to the information she just gave you?
I'm going to ask Esteban, if this is bargaining, I'm equipped to bargain with your bargaining team. But if this is turning into sort of a workshop or a town hall that my team
meeting.
we're not really prepared to have an engagement in, I'm just not, again, happy to listen to all of this, happy to take all of this in, but I don't think this is designed to be a debate or an argument session. We're here to bargain and we're willing to listen, but
Sure. We're here to bargain. We offered a counter proposal. You can offer us one now, but this is also a public meeting. We cannot keep anyone from speaking.
I don't agree with
It
that.
seems like you're stalling. We have the most to lose, right?
I don't
If we
agree
get into
that
a negotiation, then we don't get anything.
It is a public meeting that involves all kinds of people speaking. And in fact, the faculty union only lets their bargaining team speak.
Okay, then Ryan, one of our members actually posed a really great question, is that what are your specific problems with the current proposal we have given you?
It's really, we need to go back and do the math.
Okay.
All right.
Actually never
Rohit,
presented us with any documents showing us how you're doing the math. Are you personally doing math? Who are you prioritizing over us in these calculations? Do you know what goes into the math?
The math is done by university fiscal individuals that look at the cost of these things.
And why are they not present here at this bargaining session right now?
Because they're doing their jobs.
So
And
this
what's
is
your
actually,
job
this leads
here?
to.
What is your job here then?
Excuse me, Thalia. This is a good question. So in the past, what we have been able to do is, and Ryan, I'm sure you're aware of this as well. I don't think Bill kept you out of the loop on this. we've been actually able to get the people who it's been the CFO in the past. I think there was somebody else in the summer of 2019 who wasn't the CFO, but we have been able to, at one of the meetings, bring in somebody who was responsible for calculating the cost of these proposals to come in and answer specific questions like this. Is this something that you're willing to do, willing to arrange in like next week, if possible?
It's possible, but please understand that in order to do the math on your proposal that you made today, it would take many people over potentially a few days. It is not something they could do today. It's not something they could do in a caucus, and it's not questions they could answer now. So I don't know that they would provide the answers you are looking for. And also the people who do the math aren't always the decision makers about ultimately what is within the university's means. Those are two different groups doing.
So yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but as far as the question, right? What are, like, you said that the concerns were the math, right? So we asked, what are the concerns with our proposal?
The reason we can't respond to your proposal today, or even tell you whether it's something that's doable, is because we don't know what it ends up costing. There's
Exactly.
Well, we have actually done that. We have calculated the cost for many of our proposals. I can tell you that if you take the current GA base and you apply that minimum change, you're falling between 11 and 14 million dollars as a whole for just to get to the same payment of the University of Georgia. That would be 11 to 14 million extra a year out of 2.4 billions that are spent in compensation and benefits as per the last financial statement. So I mean, if that helps in any way, just as an advance, of course, we understand that they have to go through the math, but we have calculated. We know what our proposals actually cost. Having said that, Rohit, I think you've been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, I just wanted to, my concern noted that for a GA who is also an international student and who is married, which is also people who are doing their PhD are like a considerable number of them are married, and their spouse cannot work or supplement their income by law. So for them, the stipend that they are getting is really not reasonable for surviving in Gainesville, because the price of one bedroom or a studio apartment has gone up by a huge number. You cannot get one apartment below $700 to $800 or even $900, and even the insurance cost of their spouse is being cut from their stipend, so that's $200 less. That more $200 go away from their stipend, so the remaining stipend is really less for such students.
Rohit, I'm just going to reiterate some of your main points because you were a little bit quiet. So again, largely what Rohit is expressing is our main concern. It's really quiet, Rohit.
Just a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
much better. As in the radio.
Yeah, so sorry. So I just wanted my concern to be noted, as in I'm an international student, and a lot of students who are doing their PhD are sometimes married, like a considerable number of them are, and their spouse is not allowed to work or earn anything by law. So and also their spouse's insurance is being cut from their stipend. So $200 is cut from their stipend for their spouse's insurance. So that's so then the stipend becomes really less. And any one bedroom apartment or studio apartment in Gainesville nowadays is too expensive. So that's why the stipend is really less for such students. That's what I wanted to for you to hear like the concern.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Kimberly, you've also been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And also thank you all just with bearing with the technology issues. I know that's really like frustrating. I tried to get in earlier and I know it was difficult because of what's happening. So I apologize if these questions, so please let me know if they were already posed. But I was just trying to get a handle on the process a little bit just to kind of understand. So when I know when Mr. Fuller talked about taking it to the bargaining committee in the business, I'm just trying to learn more of the stakeholders and the protocol process for this a little bit. Like, can we know who exactly is the entire bargaining committee and who's doing the math? Like, is that sort of public record? And could we know a little bit of the timeline? So is it kind of like a once in a month meeting that this is discussed, or how is this sort of like adopted a little bit here?
I guess what I'll say is, in addition to the 4 individuals that are here on a regular basis to bargain, we talk to a number of senior administrators at the university, from the provost's office to the chief financial officer's office, to the graduate school, and they are there to assist the larger sort of team figure out what sort of is the appropriate sort of response and proposals, and think through what is the appropriate sort of bargaining position of the university. Beyond that, the financial services office and with some assistance from human resources, staff in those groups help actually do the calculations along with staff in the graduate school.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. How is
and to your question, there isn't a set monthly meeting
Okay.
or a regular meeting. We try to get everybody together as expeditiously as we can, and it often involves waiting to see what the math comes out to, and what all of the calculations come to before we meet and talk about it.
So could we then, does that mean that we should be also reaching out to people in the graduate school then a little bit? Because I just know with the timeline, it just seems really extensive. So should we be also reaching out to the provost and all these sort of different entities then to then establish other meetings with them?
No.
No, okay. I'm just like trying to get a parcel of the timeline. Well, should we with the graduate school, I think just looking at and examining what's happening right now, and for transparency for students that are looking at UF, could we contact them to work on maybe different language for the website and marketing, just to let students know coming in, right now we are dealing with poverty wages at UF, and like, here, like directly have it a little bit more transparent for students too as well, for like admissions. Like, could we reach out to them and work with like, hey, we really need to be transparent in terms of, here's what the stipend is, here's like where, food stamps, like all of this sort of, to also just, I don't know, I feel like there's a bit of like an ethicality sort of issue with letting people know coming here, you're going to be applying for food stamps. Is that something that we could possibly work with?
I think the representatives on these Zoom meetings are the people to talk to about those, and just like we would not as an employer go and attempt to circumvent your bargaining team and directly deal with the graduates union or the graduate assistants on any terms or conditions of employment, we would respect the process and go to Esteban and his team. We would ask that you do the same.
Yeah, actually, Kimberly, now that you mentioned the issue of food stamps, we have quite an amount of GAs on food stamps. We have 14% using the field and fork pantry, but I believe that it's around 8%. I need to check our survey report, but it's quite alarming using food stamps and other programs. So that's something we've brought here, but again, we appreciate that you bring it, because I mean, I think that food security has been probably the most urgent matter in terms of what our survey revealed. Kelly, I think you've been waiting for a long time, and yeah, I think you've been waiting for a very long time right now. Yeah,
That's
sorry.
Thank you. No, that's okay. Thank you, Esteban. And then thank you for UF for listening to us. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to share that, I really am grateful being here at UF, and I am a 6th-year doctoral student, probably looking at year 7. The pandemic slowed me down. That's not necessarily, UF's fault. However, I'm fortunate that I have a spouse that has a full-time job, so I can afford my home. However, with increasing costs and everything, like my salary pretty much pays for childcare, and I have 3 children, and food has gone up so exponentially. Like, I'm thinking that I have to stop sending my children to after-school childcare because it's so expensive, and that's just going to delay me here even longer, which then I would think costs UF more money to have to pay for me to stay here longer, especially in like health insurance. I've already been here long enough. I'm like ready to be done. But yeah, so it's just, again, even though I'm very fortunate, I have a spouse that can help support me financially. A lot of other people don't. My whole salary goes to childcare, and groceries right now is just ridiculous.
Thanks, Kelly. Kimberly, also, as I said, your point is very valid. Can you also shoot us an email so we can talk further about that? And I believe we have some written statements that some people that couldn't attend asked us to read out. Meredith. Oh, Mandy's here. Sorry. We have one person actually here that wants to speak, and she sent us an email some time ago. Mandy, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so I had written out this whole thing that I was gonna tell you all about, all of the expenses I've had this week. I had to pay for a medication on Sunday that was $270. And that's one of 4 medications I take every day because I'm disabled and have chronic health issues. But what I'm getting from this meeting, I'm going to scrap that and say something else, because Mr. Fuller, it kind of feels like you're reacting to this as if you are feeling a little attacked. I don't know if you expected all of us to be here and to be communicating these questions and these opinions to you. And I get that you want to respect the process, and that, we can have a different discussion about what is and isn't appropriate to have in a bargaining session. But it is very infuriating to me that you would act as if you were being attacked. Do you understand how violent it is to exploit our labor? I had to, okay. The apartment that I was living in that was affordable on the salary that you paid me was literally making me sick. I had to move to a more expensive apartment. My rent takes up an entire paycheck from the stipend. I understand that you feel attacked in this meeting. Understand how the university is attacking us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. Do we have written statements, Rachel, Meredith? Do we have any written statements? Oh yeah, Rachel is looking for them.
I wanted to address the comment about not circumventing the bargaining team. I think it's
Sure, go ahead.
right to circumvent the bargaining team when they are not sharing any information with us about what the process is. And quite frankly, I don't know if it's ignorance or an unwillingness to share the information, but it doesn't seem like you have anything to offer in these meetings beyond saying that you will return to someone else who should be here, frankly.
So I will say on our end, we are, I'm sorry that if you felt that we weren't being transparent with you, we're more than willing to discuss what we know about the process. I don't know if that was directed towards the GAU bargaining team or the administration.
That was towards the administration.
Oh, okay, my bad, sorry.
But in any case, if you ever have questions, know that we're always open. And as I said, Kimberly's concern with food stamps is pinpoint true. Our survey actually revealed that a considerable amount of GAs use food stamps, and also like to that we have to add a 14% using the field and fork pantry. Where are we with?
Oh, I have statements, but
yeah.
I just want to be cognizant that it's 1:59 p.m.
Ryan, Brooke, Dr. Duncan, do we have a few more minutes? I believe we have 3 written statements.
Sure, go ahead.
2? Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Just so, Rachel, I only have the statement that says bargaining. I don't have the statement that says statement.
Okay, so then do you want to read bargaining and I'll read statement?
Yes.
Whoever wants to go first. Yeah.
I will go first. I'm sorry. So this statement was prepared by a current PhD student. She'd also like it to be known that the experiences written below occurred during her previous advisor and not with her current advisor. It is very much in the zeitgeist among the graduate students in the programs I've been a part of at UF that working just the hours of our FTE is quite literally a joke. That option does not exist if we expect to accomplish all that is required of us by our program research and advisors. I also remember at one point being informed of days off we were allotted. But how do I take those allotted days off if they don't exist in the mind of my advisor? This experience and mentality just seemed par for the course, as graduate school is a relatively temporary experience. But then my sister was diagnosed with cancer in late 2018, and after excruciating attempts at treatment, she passed away in May 2020. Very specific instances stand out in my mind in which my employment and living stipend were used as a weapon to guarantee the majority of my time focused on my research rather than my family. After expressing the daily hours I spent on the phone with my sister to comfort her, I was told I couldn't be expected to be by my family to spend all the time doing such things. When my sister had a close call and at the time a near miraculous recovery, I dropped all responsibilities to be by her side in California for 2 weeks. I take responsibility for the lack of communication I had with my advisor at the time, but what I did not expect was an email threatening that I was, quote, very behind, end quote, and on track not to produce what was required to graduate in the second semester of my PhD. Upon my return, it was emphasized once again how behind I was and how much work was required of me to catch up. And it was expected that I basically discontinue my monthly to bi-monthly visits to see my sister, as my research was my primary responsibility and focus and could be taken away from me. The responsibility for time off, something people get who have actual salaries, was never even a consideration in the slightest. During this time, we were informed the owner of the place my husband and I were renting had decided to sell, and we had 60 days to move out or buy the property. With little other choice, we started the process of purchasing the townhouse, an extremely emotional and challenging experience due to my minimal funds I received, only compounded by the cost of the cross-country flights I took to see my sister. I stayed as honest and open with my advisor as possible, providing updates on the emotional and financial situations I was in. And what were the expectations of me during this entire time? To continue to diligently put in long hours to stay on track with this imaginary timeline in which my funding was always dangled over my head as why I was not only expected, but required to meet these expectations. And what is the ultimate result of all of this? I had a breakdown that required a year-long medically approved withdrawal, where I was once more told that because of the requirements of my funding, I would likely completely lose my position and be unwelcome back. Thankfully, this was not true, and a set of completely different circumstances led to my very, very luckily getting to work with a different advisor. But despite being in a paid PhD position, I was forced to take additional student loans out, an expense I will be paying for quite some time to cover the high interest credit card debt I had accumulated from simply living through a very difficult time while being a PhD research assistant. This whole story does not include my agreement to work on an additional project during this very difficult time because of the promise of additional pay. Pay I am still fighting to receive fully approximately 2 years after the fact. I feel I'm living in a dichotomy of working to achieve the knowledge and experience to hopefully make the world a better place, but in a place where my personal value feels non-existent. I feel my university cares more about its public image and ranking than it does for the students who actually help the school achieve that ranking. And that's the end of the statement.
Meredith, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my statement is written by Michaela. And they say, hi, I'm a second-year graduate student here at UF. Unfortunately, I TA a course during this time and was unable to attend our meeting today. As someone who has been deeply impacted by our unlivable wage, I requested to have someone read my statement for me. I grew up in a household that was below the poverty line my whole life, and I never received financial assistance from a single parent when I started college. I came to UF expecting to be able to live comfortably using my own finances, but I have found that the only people who can stay afloat have at least some of their bills covered by other people. Assistance shouldn't be the only way we can survive without living in debt. Rent in Gainesville has increased astronomically in the past year. It is impossible to find a studio apartment for under $1,000 per month. Before even factoring in utilities, this is well over 1/2 of my paycheck. I have to live in a temporary room in a friend's house because I cannot afford to rent my own place. Every apartment requires the tenant to make 2 to 3 times the rent, and most require 3 times rent. Because of this, I will never be able to rent my own apartment because there is not a single apartment in Gainesville that I am able to apply for without a cosigner. Since I grew up in a poor household, I'm unable to use my mother as a cosigner. I had to endure the stress of finding a distant relative to be my cosigner, which after being told no by many other roommates or many other relatives, was still reluctant to co-sign for me. Last year, I tried living in a house with 3 roommates. Even with living in a toxic household that was so abusive that my work, grades, and mental health were severely impacted, I still wasn't making the required 3 times rent for my portion. The house that I'm living in right now is about to be sold next year, and I will have nowhere to live. Graduate student housing is hardly an option for me since 2 of the complexes are being torn down with no plans for a replacement option for the next year. Not every student who applies to live there will be able to get housing. I need to be able to live in my own apartment in Gainesville with my own income. Homelessness is a reality that is looking me in the face for the next year, which should never be a possibility for your employees. I drove the same car that I bought for $2,000 when I was 16 up until this year, when it needed too many repairs for me to afford to keep it. Living in a house that requires me to drive everywhere, I had to buy myself a new car. Now I have monthly payments that I'm unable to make. Paying for that, car insurance, my phone bill, rent, utilities, groceries, and healthcare has put me in the negatives every month. By contract, I am not allowed to have a second job to help me afford these bills. It is painful and stressful to watch, and that is putting it lightly. I have to get my groceries from the food pantry, which does not always have more than just bread and canned vegetables. Not having enough nutritious food has impacted my physical health and work output. Sometimes I like to visit my family, which requires a plane ticket that costs at least $300. I owe almost $1,000 to Florida Blue because I have never been able to pay my health care these past 2 years. My medication costs $50 per month, not including the cost of monthly required visits to the doctor. I physically cannot survive without my medication. I have constant anxiety when thinking about how I am in credit card debt. Every one of my therapy sessions circles back to the topic of learning how to cope with such a low income. I have had the same phone for the past 7 years and the same computer for the past 6 years. When these inevitably break or stop working, I have panic attacks because I know that I cannot afford a new phone or computer for the next 3.5 years. So every time they break, there is a possibility that they won't be recoverable, and I will be without a phone or computer indefinitely. You all know how much inflation has increased these past few years. You won't even match our pay with inflation. I have never seen an employer offer so little pay increase each year. At this rate, our pay will continue to never match inflation, and my struggles will become rapidly more prevalent. Every year that I work here, I will be more unable to get by because a few $100 to pay increase for the year, a few $100 of pay increase for the year doesn't do anything to help us survive. I cannot even think to imagine the challenges your graduate employees who have children to feed have to face. Independent living is impossible when employed by the University of Florida. If I am unable to afford housing next year, I will have to choose either homelessness or quit my program. You shouldn't have to make me make that decision. Thank you for listening. And on a personal note, I just want to add that I could honestly co-sign on that entire statement. Yeah. So thank you, Michaela.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a few questions from Juliana.
Yes. Juliana, go ahead.
Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Yep.
I think these questions are for both the administration and the student union. I feel like I can speak for all of us that these bargaining sessions and this process overall have been extremely frustrating to all of us, administration, students, representatives of the union. And I guess my question is, how can we move forward and make these sessions more productive to all of us? Because I think not having, for example, the people that make those calculations to see if our proposals are fair and viable, not here, makes the administration frustrated when we do not understand why really our proposals have been rejected. And it also makes us frustrated because we really don't have any information from the university that would make this process more transparent. So my questions would be, would it be possible to invite those people to explain to us how they calculate those and how, why our proposals previously have been rejected? Because I think that would facilitate for the administration to tell us their side, and for us to sort of understand better how it's working. And also, how will the administration prioritize our bargaining, considering that fees are due soon? And how are you, as the administration, sort of prioritizing getting this solved so we can all sort of move forward, especially with fees being due and a lot of students being in sort of like a tight position financially right now? That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Juliana.
So Ryan, I mean, that just that underscores what I was saying earlier. It does help when these bargaining sessions are used as an opportunity for transparency on the part of the administration. So we've had this in the past where the CFO or their deputies have come and spoken to us. We've had this in the past with Jill Sunfest at Gator Grad Gator. So I do strongly urge you to consider not just what you are able to do as council, what you are allowed and not allowed to do, but also consider the importance of mending mending the broken trust between the administration and its graduate employees by doing what the university has done in the past and brought decision makers and people who are responsible for advising them to these bargaining sessions to present the administration's case and to answer some procedural questions. It goes a long way in mending the relationships between administration and graduate employees.
Understood.
And I do want to reiterate Juliana's question about how exactly you're prioritizing our contract negotiations with the deadline coming up so quickly and only having until the end of March anyway with our extension.
So again, I know you're concerned about the deadline on the fee, and all I can do is provide you assurances that we understand your position and that we are not interested in having to get into a dispute with us over that. As far as prioritizing the actual bargaining and potential resolution of where we stand on the rest of Article 10, our intent is to go back as quickly as we can. What was today, Thursday, and get with our group, do some calculations, share the information that you have provided both during sort of the original sort of pre-caucus bargaining session and the information that you've shared since then, to help us sort of make what we hope to be is something that, you know, can get us closer together here.
Thank you.
So we are well over time, so I think we probably should wind it down.
Yes. Any Ryan, Dr. Duncan, Brooke, any final comments?
No, I guess I would just say for now, for the future, we're happy to bargain. I know it's been frustrating. I'm not trying to convince you that it's not frustrating or that your expressions of frustration are going on, are being received by deaf ears. However, I come to these with the understanding that we are going to bargain with a bargaining team. If you want us to listen to other folks' voices in support of your proposal, we're happy to do that, and it was helpful today. However, please understand that I'm not going to allow my bargaining team to bargain with 90 people. So if you want to share information with us, that's fine. But if we're going to debate the pros and cons of different proposals, we're going to do that with Esteban, we're going to do that with Rachel, we're going to do that with, you know, Meredith and whoever is on your team. And that's what I'm going to reserve it to. We will listen to, and you can share all the information from everybody else, because it does add context and important information to your proposal. But we're only going to bargain with the actual team.
Okay, so I do want to be clear that a lot of times when these questions are being asked, it is for purposes of sharing information, right? So I mean, that
was true for some of them. That wasn't true for all of them.
Okay.
What will be the problem to justify the proposal, though? You're here to bargain, so we have questions about your position in the bargaining position that you hold. So it only makes sense for us to ask questions about that. You're not here to negotiate with us or the people outside the bargaining team, but you're here also to present your own offer and your own position. And you have not been able to do that in the entire meeting because we have asked questions. How does that counter proposal came up? What was the process that drove that proposal of 1,300 something a year? And you have not been able to give us an explanation on what was the rationale behind that counter proposal.
We have provided a rationale. It may not be one that your team agrees with. I understand that. But there's a difference between agreeing with us and us not providing an explanation. But again, if there are questions or other sort of issues that you'd like to raise, you know, you have a team that can bring those questions to us.
I would argue that this is a public forum. This is a public meeting. There is nothing allowing us to limit their capacity to speak. We can barely organize it as best as we can, allowing as many speakers into Zoom as we can. Today we had like a whole problem of having too many.
I'm gonna reiterate what I said. I have not said that nobody could speak at this. However, if we're going to bargain, my team of 3 and 4 is going to bargain with a team of 3 and 4.
No, I'm sure, and that you did.
And Ryan, I would also say that what we present you in proposals is the bargaining process that comes from our bargaining team and goes to your bargaining team. But we need the information and the questions from our members to help supplement that. And so like they come here, they're invested in this process, and they are allowed to ask questions. It's a public meeting.
And again, like the last months have been a monologue by myself. So I think that it's a welcome change up to some point.
Are you saying that you would have been able to answer those questions any better had they come from Esteban?
I am simply saying that for the ground rules that I'm going to have my team operate under, we will bargain with the bargaining team. We will listen to other questions and we will listen to other statements. But, you know, to the extent we're going to debate or discuss any particular aspect of any particular proposal, whether we can answer the questions at this meeting or at a future one, that will be with the bargaining teams.
And again, whether you decide to answer questions, that's entirely
I
up to you.
understand that, Esteban. I'm telling you what we are doing.
It's your decision. You can.
It is my
decide to
decision.
answer
I'm just
not answer.
educating you about what my decision is.
Absolutely.
I understand your
absolutely.
position, and I haven't debated it. I've just told you what my position is.
No, absolutely. And just I wanted to say that we have indeed bargained. There has.
I didn't say you haven't.
All right, Ryan, I'm sorry, you're coming off not in a good light right now. I urge you to calm down. All right, we're trying to wind this down. We shared information with you. We're trying to express how we're frustrated. Let's take the information that we got from both sides today, calm down a little bit, all right, and try to go into the next meeting with more productive postures, all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I just, next time, you know, if you continue to have 90 people throwing questions at us, expect a similar response.
We'll probably be prepared as opposed to your team today.
Understood.
Again, your responses it's just up to you. Don't worry. We've shared a proposal. We don't have a counter proposal yet, but we'll be waiting. All right.
All right.
Thank you all for coming, and we'll see everyone else in the debrief. Bye for now. Thank you.